Hello, welcome to Old Nerd Reads Unknown Worlds of Science Fiction number 3. This came out 51 years ago, back in 1975. It's hard to believe this magazine's that old. Um, you can kind of see some yellowing here, but really does not look like it should be 51 years old. This was a very good issue. There's 5 or 6 issues total in this run of Unknown Worlds of Science Fiction magazine, published by Marvel Curtis. But they're really good. I wish they had continued, but I'll take what I can get. This one, so this front cover is by Michael Whalen. This front cover painting, awesome science fiction painting. We've got a frontispiece by Gray Morrow. That's a really cool one. Here's our table of contents. We've got stories in here. So the framing device for this magazine is the slow glass concept by Bob Shaw, which started in the first issue of this magazine. In this issue, they have another framing device called the Star Magi. Occupation Force. This is an adaptation of a Frank Herbert story with Jerry Conway writing and George Perez doing the pencils, and I think Klaus Janson does the inks. Not long before the end, this is a really good one. This is an adaptation of a Larry Niven story, adapted by Doug Mensch and Vincente Alcazar. They say, and yes, it's sci-fi because it's a wizard versus a swordsman, but it's considered science fiction. Sandworms and Saviors. This is a big interview with Frank Herbert, author of Dune. Gestation, written and drawn by Bruce Jones, a science fiction story. Sifwa, the thing that spawned nebulas. This is a article on the Science Fiction Writers of America group and their award, the Nebula. Repent Harlequin said the TikTok Man. This is a Harlan Ellison story adapted by Roy Thomas and Alex Nino. This one's really cool. And the Shape of Things That Came. I think this is just like the letters page. Let's get it going in here. So we've got a little editorial by Roy Thomas, the editor of the magazine. Here's the original artwork for issue 1. I guess some changes were made to it, but it was a Kelly Freese and John Ramada Sr. collaboration. This painting for issue number 1, the cover. But the editorial by Roy Thomas is just about the confusion about space opera, I guess. I guess in the first issue, his editorial said they were going to steer clear of space opera, but there's a lot of nuances that go along with what space opera is. So he's saying that we're not going to avoid it altogether. If it's good, we'll put it in the magazine, basically. Now here's our framing device, the slow glass framing device for the magazine. Slow glass, once again, created by Bob Shaw. This is by Tony Isabella, Gene Colan, and Frank Chiaramonte. So this is kind of our crypt keeper in Unknown Worlds of Science Fiction. He owns this this antique shop, and he sells his slow glass out of this antique shop. His name's Sanson Time. But he's lamenting that nobody wants to buy his slow glass, and then an alien materializes inside of his shop wanting slow glass because this alien and his mate were on an expeditionary mission out in space in a spaceship exploring. They returned to their homeworld after an expedition just in time to see it destroyed. The alien's mate misses their homeworld quite a bit, so he, in order to make her happy, he knows about this slow glass. He goes to Earth and materializes in Sanson Time's antique shop to get slow glass. And the proprietor, Sanson Time, has to explain to the alien that it's not necessarily going to work for you. And this starts our first story, Occupation Force. This was a Frank Herbert story, and it's adapted by Jerry Conway, George Perez, and Klaus Janson. I was right. So it's got some really good early George Perez artwork. Can't really tell that it's George Perez by this. A little bit. I mean, that looks like that could be Dick Grayson from the Teen Titans, right? But this is just a fun short story. Aliens come to Earth, and the military questions them when they come down. They're human. When they come down their gangplank from their ship, they're human. And the U.S. military says, "Are you here as friends or as enemies?" And the alien announces to the U.S. military, "We colonized this place 7,000 years ago." Here's a cool illustration by R. Klein. Robert Klein, from 1972. Earthman, do you know the way to avoid missing a single issue of Unknown Worlds of Science Fiction? Alien, no, but if you hum a few bars, I'll make up a new joke. Typical Roy Thomas era Marvel humor. This is just the in order form, so you can get some Marvel magazines here, like Savage Sword of Conan, Planet of the Apes, Dracula Lives, Vampire Tales, Savage Tales, Monsters of the Movies, Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, Crazy, Science Fiction, which is this magazine, Unknown Worlds of Science Fiction, and Marvel Preview. You can get six issues for these prices. It's pretty good. Most expensive one is Planet of the Apes, but that's 12 issues, so but most of them are 6 issues. To go back in time. Now here is an adaptation of a Larry Niven story. Not long before the end, it's a swordsman versus a sorcerer. And this was a really fun one. Adapted by Doug Mensch and Vincente Alcazar, I believe is how you pronounce that. He's a really good artist. And Doug Mensch, of course, everybody knows he's a great writer. An adaptation of a Larry Niven science fiction story, even though it looks like sword and sorcery, it's actually, they're considering it science fiction. This magician, he has to keep moving every several years because the magic where in the area where he occupies gets used up. So he has to upend his life and move every 15 years or so once the magic disappears. And then there's this swordsman, barbarian, who is called to this demon sword. And it's, what's the name of it? It has Glirandry is the name of the sword. This is the hilt. So he's drawn to this. It was in the possession of this woman, I guess, and he slept with her, and he got out of bed when she was asleep, took her sword and stabbed her with it while she slept, and now he is after the magician. The magician has a lovely young assistant. They live on top of this mountain. The wizard detects that the swordsman is coming for him because of the power of the sword that he's carrying. So it's just a magician versus a swordsman at this point. And it's really interesting because he talks about the rules of the world that they live in and the magic. And he warns the swordsman about the sword. It's stuck to his hand now. The sword, he can't let go of it. He has to sleep with it, everything. He can't let go of the sword now. It's bonding with him. And the wizard tells him, you'd be better to just chop off your hand and get rid of that thing. But of course, the swordsman's not going to do that. But the magician tries to stop him with magic, but the demon sword is able to basically cut through all the magic. And but just before he's about to take the life of the wizard, the sword turns into the actual demon that it is and attacks the swordsman, bites off his hand. And basically, the magician wins in the end, even though he's like over 200 years old. He's able to stab the swordsman, and then the magician, who's right on the edge of death because he's so old and magic has been sustaining him, he has to move once again. If he's going to live, he has to move once again to the bottom of the mountain where there is still some magic that hasn't been used up, and he regains his youthful appearance, and that's the end. Conan the Barbarian Marvel Treasury Edition. I think I have that. I think I own it. Here's the Punisher way back in 1975. He was in Marvel Preview magazine, the second issue of Marvel Preview. I think the first issue was a Man God cover story. So the Punisher was in the second issue. I'd like to get my hands on some of those old Marvel Preview magazines. They look like they'd be fun. They actually look like they kind of carry on stories from the comics, but in a magazine where they can get away with a little bit more adult material. Now here is the interview with Frank Herbert with some great artwork to frame it up. That's Frank Herbert. I've got some other artwork here by Ed Hannigan. It must be a Dune illustration by Ed Hannigan. Here's the original cover to the Dune novel, paperback. Yeah, he just talks about how he got started in the industry. He was an ecologist. He was a photographer, a reporter. He did all sorts of things, and all that informed his creation of the Dune series. That was a pretty good interview, actually. The interviews in these magazines have been good. The issue before this was, who was in the issue before this? Ray Bradbury. I think in the issue before, the first issue was Bob Shaw, maybe. But they've all been very good interviews with these writers. Yeah, here's Marvel Preview #1 with Man Gods on the cover. But this is the Bruce Jones story. He writes and pencils Gestation. This is just a really cool, just a basic explorers in a spaceship land on an alien world to explore it. They're botanists. They're studying the plant life. They discover that they can eat the plants, and the combination of eating the plants and some of the insect life turns them all into moths by the end. They spin their own cocoons and turn into moths. It's kind of a fun story. Here's the next issue advertisement. In the next issue of Unknown Worlds of Science Fiction, we've got A.E. Van Vogt, Otis Adelbert Klein, who I'm not sure who that is, Robert Silverberg, I've heard of, and a couple of well-known authors as well. Haha. On sale April 22nd, wherever bug-eyed monsters are displayed. Let's see. Now here's the Sifwa article, talking about the origins of Sifwa. It started with Damon Knight. He's a sci-fi writer. He was the first president of the organization. Here's Isaac Asimov winning a nebula for The Gods Themselves, his novel The Gods Themselves. Can't really see it, but he's holding his Nebula Award under his arm there. Here is the story that they've been teasing the last couple issues. Roy Thomas has been teasing. I guess there were some delays getting it done, but this is Repent, Harlequin Cried the TikTok Man. And it's written by Roy Thomas, a story by Harlan Ellison, with art by Alex Nino. And this is good. This is really good. Between the artwork and the story, this is just really good. Alex Nino is quite the artist, and it's really kind of hard to follow here on screen. It's kind of a mess trying to figure out which word balloon you're supposed to go to next. But as long as you take your time and go through it nice and slow, you can figure it out. It doesn't translate real well to the screen here, but excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. It's just about a well-regimented, regulated by schedules and the clock society with one person who's unwilling to conform to that, and he finally gets captured. It's kind of like 1984, I guess. He finally gets captured and conditioned into being not being a maniac, basically, and uh, conforming to the clock and the schedule of this world. So excellent stuff, really. I'd like to read the original story this is based on. And here is the end framing device, slow glass framing device. Back in Sanson Times antique shop with the Magi alien, learning about slow glass. Probably not going to work for what he wants. He plans. He says, "I'll make slow glass work. I can travel ahead of the speed of light and get to places where the light from the destruction of my planet hasn't yet reached, and I can record the last few years of the existence of my planet that way." But that's not going to work. But then, in the meantime, his mate was contacted by other aliens to get her memories of her homeworld, because they archive this sort of thing. They're like archivists, librarian aliens, and so she just says, "Look, I'm happy with just you. If it's just the two of us, we can have our own little world someplace and live happily ever after." And that's the end. And then we just have the continuations of the Frank Herbert interview and the Sifwa article. Here's a letters page. Most people dig the magazine. There were some complaints, of course. There always are. Here's a picture of Stanley and Isaac Asimov. And that's it. You can get a job at Duraclean cleaning carpets. Look at that van. I would love to have that van. And that's the end of Unknown Worlds of Science Fiction number 3. Do you guys out there read this? Do you collect these old Marvel Curtis magazines? I never really had many until the last few years, and just started picking them up, like 1984 magazine, which isn't Curtis, but the old Savage Sword of Conan magazines. Lots of these old magazines I'm finding nowadays, which I never really paid any attention to when I was younger. But now I'm finding that I really enjoy these magazines. They're quite good. So if this is your kind of thing, please subscribe. If you know any other old nerds like us who enjoy this kind of thing, they're old comics from the Bronze Age of comic books back in the 70s and the early 80s, please share this video with them. If you'd like, comment down below, leave me a like. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.